Welcome back to the channel, coin collectors, treasure hunters, and everyone who loves discovering valuable United States coins. Today we are taking a fascinating coins. Coin number 1. This 1998 Washington quarter with a P mint mark, described in this video as being in red condition, with a claimed market value of $133. If you have a 1998 Washington quarter sitting in an old coin jar, collection album, inherited coin box, or even somewhere in your pocket change, you may be wondering whether it could really be worth an extraordinary amount of money. The 1998 Washington quarter is especially interesting because it represents the final year of the original Washington quarter reverse design before the introduction of the 50-state quarters program in 1999. For decades, collectors became familiar with George Washington on the obverse and the American eagle on the reverse. The 1998 issue therefore belongs to an important transition point in American coinage history. PCGS specifically notes that 1998 was the last year the mint struck Washington quarters with the traditional eagle reverse used for the series before the state quarters program changed the reverse design in 1999. That historical position alone makes the coin interesting, even though the date itself is not rare. Let us begin with the basic identification. If you are examining a 1998 Washington quarter, the first thing you should do is look at the date on the obverse. You should clearly see 1998 beneath the portrait of George Washington. Then look near the lower portion of the obverse for the small P mint mark. The P indicates that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. This is an important identifying feature because the United States Mint also produced Washington quarters at Denver in 1998, and the Philadelphia and Denver issues are catalogued separately. The 1998 with P Washington quarter had a reported mintage of approximately 268,000 pieces, meaning that enormous numbers were produced for circulation. That huge mintage immediately tells us something important. The 1998 P Washington quarter is not a rare coin simply because it carries the date 1998 or the P mint mark. Millions upon millions of examples entered circulation, and many survive today. PCGS classifies the regular 1998 with P issue as a numismatic rarity R1.0, essentially indicating that it is a readily available coin in normal grades. This is why collectors should be careful whenever they see sensational claims about a common modern quarter being worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. A high valuation must be supported by something extraordinary, such as an exceptional grade, a major recognized mint error, a significant variety, or a documented auction result. Now let us talk about the phrase red condition. This description can be confusing when applied to a modern clad Washington quarter. Collectors often use color designations such as brown, red-brown, and red when discussing copper coins, particularly Lincoln cents. A 1998 Washington quarter, however, is not a traditional solid copper coin. The regular issue is composed of a copper-nickel outer layer bonded to a copper core. USA Coinbook lists the 1998 with P Washington quarter as approximately 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with a weight of about 5.67 grams. Therefore, if someone describes a 1998 with P quarter as red, it may be referring to its appearance, toning, copper coloration, or simply a condition label being used informally rather than a standard Washington quarter grading designation. This distinction is extremely important for anyone watching this video because coin value depends heavily on accurate grading. Professional grading services examine a coin's strike, luster, surface preservation, contact marks, scratches, coloration, eye appeal, and overall condition. A coin that looks brilliant to the naked eye may not receive the grade its owner expects. Conversely, an unusually clean and sharply struck coin can sometimes be much more desirable than an ordinary example of the same date. When examining your 1998 with P Washington quarter, start with the obverse. Look closely at George Washington's portrait. Examine the highest points of the design and check for signs of wear. On a circulated coin, the highest areas can develop flattened details, dull surfaces, surfaces, and small scratches. On an uncirculated coin, the original mint luster should remain visible. Rotate the coin slowly under a light source rather than holding it directly beneath a bright lamp. This can reveal tiny marks and changes in surface quality that may not be visible at first glance. Next, examine the reverse. The traditional eagle design is one of the defining characteristics of this final pre-state quarter issue. Look at the eagle's feathers, the surrounding lettering, the rim, and the overall strike. A very sharp strike can contribute to desirability in high-grade collecting, but strike quality alone does not automatically turn a common quarter into a six-figure rarity. Every aspect of the coin has to be considered together. The rim is another area that deserves careful attention. Run your eyes around the entire circumference without touching the coin unnecessarily. Look for unusual doubling, missing design elements, abnormal thickness, cracks, clips, or other characteristics that might indicate a minting error. Remember that not every unusual-looking feature is a valuable error. Damage that occurs after the coin leaves the mint can sometimes resemble a mint error, and professional examination is the safest way to distinguish the two. The P mint mark is also worth inspecting carefully. Make sure that it is actually part of the original coin and not damaged or altered. Collectors sometimes discover coins with unusual-looking mint marks because of circulation damage, polishing, chemical exposure, or attempts at alteration. A legitimate mint error must generally be supported by characteristics consistent with the manufacturing process used by the mint. Another important factor is the coin's surface. If your 1998 with P Washington quarter has been heavily scratched, cleaned, polished, dipped improperly, or exposed to harsh chemicals, its collectible value can be reduced dramatically. Cleaning is especially dangerous because an apparently shiny coin is not necessarily a valuable coin. Professional graders can recognize unnatural surfaces, and a cleaned coin may receive a details designation instead of a normal numerical grade. Imagine, for example, that you find a 1998 with P quarter that has been protected from circulation since the day it was struck. The surfaces are exceptionally clean. There are almost no contact marks. The luster is strong. The strike is sharp. The rims are intact. The details are crisp. The coin has never been cleaned. Under professional examination, it could potentially receive an extremely high mint state grade. Such a coin would be much more interesting to advanced collectors than an ordinary circulated quarter. But even then, the grade must be verified. Human eyes alone are not enough when the difference between grades can mean hundreds or thousands of dollars. Professional grading companies encapsulate coins and assign grades based on established standards. A certified grade provides buyers and sellers with a common language for discussing condition. Another factor that can create a major difference in value is a genuine mint error. Suppose a 1998 with P quarter has a dramatic error that occurred during production. A major off-center strike, a significant broad strike, a substantial clipped plancher, a wrong plancher error, or another recognized mint error could attract collectors. But the error needs to be authentic and significant. Minor damage or post-mint alterations should not automatically be described as rare errors. Collectors should also watch for doubled design elements, but this is another area where caution is essential. Machine doubling, die deterioration, mechanical damage, and actual doubled dies are different phenomena. Internet photographs can make ordinary damage look spectacular. If you believe your 1998 with P quarter contains unusual doubling, compare it with authoritative references and consider professional attribution. The historical context of 1998 makes this coin even more interesting. At the end of the 1990 American coin collecting was about to enter one of its most exciting modern periods. The State Quarters program began in 1999 and introduced new reverse designs celebrating individual states. That program dramatically increased public interest in collecting quarters. The 1998 with P Washington quarter therefore sits directly at the end of the classic Eagle reverse era. For collectors building a complete Washington quarter collection, the 1998 with P is an essential date and mint entry. It can be collected alongside the 1998 with D issue and earlier Washington quarters. Some collectors focus on circulated examples, while others attempt to assemble a high-grade mint state collection. The latter strategy can become considerably more difficult because condition rarity begins to matter at the upper end of the grading scale. Let's imagine you find this coin inside an old family collection. The first step should not be to clean it. Do not use silver polish, jewelry cleaner, vinegar, abrasive materials, or household chemicals. Do not rub the surfaces with a cloth. Even if the coin looks dirty, cleaning can permanently damage the original surface. Instead, hold the coin by its edges and, if possible, place it in a proper protective holder. Next, photograph both sides under good lighting. Take a clear picture of the date, mint mark, obverse, reverse, and edge. If you believe there is an error, take close-up photographs of that specific area as well. Then compare the coin with reliable references, and if it appears exceptional, consider submitting it to a recognized professional grading service. The term red condition should also be approached carefully. Color alone does not determine value. A bright or reddish appearance can sometimes result from environmental exposure, chemical reactions, or cleaning. Professional graders evaluate the entire coin. A beautiful color can improve eye appeal, but it does not override surface damage, wear, cleaning, or authenticity issues. Next, coin number 2. This 1979 with D Washington quarter in very fine condition. In this video, we are discussing a claimed market value of $146,000, and we are going to explore exactly what makes a 1979 with D quarter. Interesting to collectors, how to identify it, what the D mint mark means, how condition affects value, and why extraordinary price claims should always be verified with professional grading and documented sales. The 1979 with D Washington quarter is an important late 20th century clad quarter, but there is a major distinction between an ordinary circulated example and an exceptionally rare high-grade or error specimen. Let's begin with the history. The Washington quarter was introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design created by John Flanagan became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. By 1979, the quarter had already been produced for decades, and the United States Mint was striking quarters using a copper-nickel-clad composition rather than the 90% silver composition used on Washington quarters dated 1964 and earlier. This means the 1979 with D quarter is not a regular silver Washington quarter. It belongs to the modern clad era, which is important when evaluating its metal content and collectible value. The D Mint mark tells us that this quarter was struck at the Denver Mint. That small letter is one of the first things a collector should verify when examining a 1979 Washington quarter. The 1979 with D issue was struck in enormous numbers, with the recorded mintage approaching 490 million pieces. Because so many were produced, the date and D Mint mark alone do not make the coin rare. Instead, collectors need to pay close attention to condition, strike quality, errors, varieties, and certification. There is another fascinating detail about the 1979 quarter that many newer collectors may not realize. 1979 was the final year before Philadelphia began placing the P Mint mark on circulating quarters. PCGS explains that Philadelphia produced Washington quarters from 1932 through 1979 carried no mint mark, while the P Mint mark began appearing on these coins in 1980. This makes 1979 an interesting transitional point in the history of Washington quarter mint marks. When you hold a 1979 D Washington quarter, the first thing you should examine is the obverse. You will see the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. Around the portrait are inscriptions including "Liberty, in God we trust," and the date in 79th. The D Mint mark appears on the obverse near Washington's hair ribbon. This placement is characteristic of the Washington quarter design during this era. Now turn the coin over and examine the reverse. You will see the classic eagle design that was used for the Washington quarter before the state quarters program transformed the reverse in 1999. The eagle spreads its wings, surrounded by inscriptions including United States of America, e pluribus unum, quarter dollar, and the familiar stars. This reverse is an important part of the historical identity of the 1979 with D quarter. The physical specifications are also worth knowing. The 1979 with D Washington quarter is a copper-nickel-clad coin. USA Coinbook lists the composition as approximately 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with a diameter of about 24.3 millimeters and a listed mass of about 5.67 grams. Other references may report slightly different nominal weights, depending on rounding and specifications, so collectors should focus on the official specifications when authentication is important. Now, let's discuss the phrase very fine condition. In professional coin grading, very fine generally indicates a circulated coin that still retains substantial design detail but has experienced noticeable wear. On a Washington quarter, you would expect to see wear on the highest portions of Washington's portrait, the hair, cheek, and other raised design elements. On the reverse, the eagle's feathers and other high points will show some flattening from circulation. A very fine coin is not an uncirculated coin. It has traveled through commerce and has been handled, exchanged, and spent. It may have small marks and surface imperfections, but it should still retain enough detail for the major design features to remain clearly recognizable. The difference between very fine, extremely fine, about uncirculated, and mint state can be significant when a coin is collectible. Why then can some websites or videos discuss enormous values? The answer is that individual coins can sometimes be dramatically different from ordinary examples. A coin may have a major mint error, an unusual variety, an extraordinary condition rarity, or a certification that makes it significantly more desirable. A headline number does not tell you what characteristic supposedly creates the value. Imagine finding a 1979 with D quarter that appears ordinary at first glance. You check the date and see 1979, you find the D mint mark. You look at the condition and estimate very fine. At this stage, there is nothing about those basic characteristics that establishes a six-figure value. But now imagine that under careful examination, you discover a major manufacturing anomaly. Perhaps the coin was struck dramatically off-center, struck on an incorrect planchet, or contains another major and authenticated mint error. Suddenly, the individual coin becomes much more interesting. That is why collectors should always separate date rarity from error rarity and condition rarity. A common date can produce an extremely interesting error. A common date can also produce a very high-grade condition rarity. But the entire population of that date does not become valuable simply because one unusual example exists. The 1979 with D Washington quarter is actually a great coin for teaching this concept because its mintage was so large. Nearly 500 million pieces were produced at Denver. With such a large production figure, collectors generally need something more than the basic date and mint mark to justify a substantial premium. One of the biggest mistakes a new collector can make is cleaning the coin. If you discover a 1979 with D quarter and think it might be valuable, do not polish it. Do not use silver polish, metal cleaner, toothpaste, vinegar, abrasive cloths, or other household products. Cleaning can permanently alter the original surface and potentially reduce the coin's numismatic appeal. If a coin is genuinely rare, preserving its original condition is far more important than making it look shiny. Instead, hold the quarter by its edges and examine it under good lighting. A simple magnifying glass can help you inspect the date, mint mark, lettering, rims, and design details. A strong light source positioned at different angles can reveal scratches, unusual doubling, die cracks, or other features that are difficult to see under normal room lighting. The D mint mark deserves special attention because counterfeiters and coin-altered surfaces can sometimes create misleading appearances. Make sure the mint mark looks naturally integrated into the coin's design. If something seems strange around the mint mark, compare it with confirmed examples of the same date and mint. Remember that post-mint damage can sometimes make an ordinary mint mark appear distorted. Another area to inspect is the die. Look carefully at each digit in 1979. If you notice doubling, don't immediately assume that you have a valuable double die. Mechanical or machine doubling can produce flat, shelf-like secondary impressions that are different from a true double die. Professional attribution can help distinguish between these possibilities. The reverse should receive the same level of attention. Study the eagle, lettering, stars, rim, and denomination. Look for major abnormalities that could have originated during the striking process. Again, not every unusual feature is a mint error. A coin can be scratched, struck against another object after leaving the mint, damaged by machinery, or chemically altered during its lifetime. That is an important lesson. A coin can be common in general circulation, but scarce in elite condition. Imagine two 1979 with D quarters sitting next to each other. One has spent decades in pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. The other was carefully preserved immediately after minting and shows exceptional surfaces. Both have the same date and mint mark, but their numismatic desirability can be completely different. Professional grading is particularly important at the high end. A collector might believe a coin is MS66, while a professional grading service could assign a different grade after examining the surfaces, strike, luster, and marks. At the highest levels, even a tiny contact mark can affect the grade. For an ordinary very fine example, however, the situation is different. The coin has already experienced circulation, so some degree of wear is expected. The important question becomes whether there is something else about the individual coin that makes it unusual. This is where the phrase, "today's market value," needs careful interpretation. Coin prices change according to supply, demand, grade, certification, auction results, dealer inventories, and collector interest. Even reliable price guides are estimates and should not be treated as guaranteed selling prices. APMAX specifically notes that market estimates can differ from retail prices and that auction results may vary, sometimes reaching unusually high or low levels. If you believe you have an exceptionally valuable 1979 with D quarter, the smartest approach is to document everything. Photograph the obverse and reverse. Photograph the edge. Take close-up images of the date and mint mark. Record the weight with a calibrated digital scale. Measure the diameter if you have appropriate equipment. Then compare the coin with authenticated examples. If a major error is suspected, consider professional attribution or grading. Certification can provide an independent assessment of the coin and its characteristics. For an extremely high-value claim, independent verification becomes even more important. Next coin number 3. This 1981 with P Washington quarter, specifically the example described as being in black condition, with a claimed market value of $129. This is an exciting coin to investigate because the 1981 Washington quarter belongs to an important period in modern American coinage, and the Philadelphia issue carries the P mint mark. The P mint mark is another important identifying characteristic. Philadelphia began placing the P mint mark on circulating Washington quarters in 1980, making the 1981 with P issue part of the early period when the Philadelphia mint mark was appearing on regular quarters. The 1981 with P was struck at the Philadelphia mint, and the P can be found near Washington's hair ribbon on the obverse. Gray sheet identifies the 1981 with P as a Philadelphia business strike Washington quarter with a mintage of 601,716,000. Now let's talk about the phrase black condition. Black is not a standard Sheldon grading category for Washington quarters. Professional grading uses numerical grades such as good, very fine, very fine, extremely fine, about uncirculated, and mint state with additional designations when appropriate. When someone describes a coin as black, they may simply be describing its dark appearance, toning, environmental discoloration, or another surface characteristic. That appearance alone does not establish rarity or value. This is particularly important with clad coins. A dark surface can result from environmental exposure, oxidation, storage conditions, contact with other materials, or chemical reactions. A coin that looks black is not automatically rare. In fact, if the dark appearance resulted from damage or harsh environmental exposure, it could potentially reduce the coin's desirability. Collectors should therefore distinguish between color or surface appearance and professional grade. This distinction is incredibly important. A common date does not automatically mean every example is worthless, but it also does not mean every example is extremely valuable. The individual coin must be evaluated on its own characteristics. Think about the production numbers. More than 600, 1,001,981, with P. Washington quarters were produced. That is an enormous number. Because so many were struck, the date and P mint mark by themselves do not make the coin rare. What collectors should investigate is whether an individual coin has an unusual error, exceptional preservation, a recognized variety, or some other characteristic that separates it from the huge population of ordinary examples. One of the most interesting concepts here is condition rarity. A coin can be extremely common in circulated grades, but much harder to find in superb mint state condition. PCGS's pricing information illustrates this phenomenon for the 1981P. The guide shows relatively modest values through many grades, followed by much higher values at the top end, reaching a displayed figure of about $4,000 at the highest listed level for this issue. This is why serious collectors sometimes search through rolls of ordinary-looking coins. They are not necessarily expecting every quarter to be valuable. Instead, they are searching for an unusually well-preserved example. A coin that avoided circulation and major contact marks can be considerably more desirable than one that spent decades moving through cash registers, pockets, vending machines, and bank bags. Imagine finding two 1981 with P quarters. The first one is scratched, dull, heavily worn, and has several contact marks. The second one has strong luster, sharp details, minimal marks, and appears almost untouched. Both coins have the same date and mint mark, but their collectible appeal can be dramatically different. Now imagine a third coin. It looks circulated, but you notice something strange about the design. Perhaps the strike appears significantly off-center. Perhaps there is a major plancher problem. Perhaps the coin appears to have been struck on an unusual plancher. At this point, the coin becomes much more interesting because you are no longer simply dealing with an ordinary date and mint combination. This is where mint errors become important. Genuine mint errors happen during the manufacturing process. Major errors can be highly collectible, particularly when they are dramatic, authentic, and scarce. However, collectors should never assume that every unusual-looking feature is a mint error. Damage after the coin leaves the mint can create strange shapes, missing details, discoloration, and distorted surfaces. For example, a coin that appears to have a missing portion of its rim could potentially be an error, but it could also have been damaged after leaving the mint. A strange-looking edge might be caused by machinery or abuse. A doubled-looking letter might be mechanical doubling rather than a genuine doubled die. Professional attribution is often necessary before making a major value claim. The date should also be inspected carefully. Look at each digit in 1981. If you notice apparent doubling, compare it with known varieties and authenticated examples. Don't rely on a photograph from social media alone. The difference between a genuine collectible variety and ordinary mechanical doubling can be extremely important. The P mint mark deserves the same attention. Confirm that it is genuine and naturally integrated into the coin. If the area around the P looks damaged, altered, or unusually raised, don't immediately assume that you have discovered a rare variety. Compare it with normal examples of the same issue. Now let's discuss the word black again. A dark coin may look dramatic under a camera, especially when strong lighting creates contrast. But collectors do not assign value simply because a coin is dark. Surface preservation, originality, grade, rarity, and authenticity are far more important. Some coins develop attractive natural toning over time, especially when stored in certain environments. Other coins develop unattractive discoloration because of contamination or improper storage. Two coins can both look dark while having completely different numismatic significance. That is why professional grading can be so useful. A reputable grading service examines the coin's surfaces, strike, wear, luster, and other characteristics before assigning a grade. Certification also provides a standardized description that buyers and sellers can understand. If your 1981 with P quarter appears exceptional, don't immediately put a huge price tag on it. Instead, document the coin. Take clear photographs of both sides. Photograph the edge. Take close-ups of the date and mint mark. If you think you have an error, photograph the suspected error from multiple angles. If you have a digital scale, weigh the coin carefully. Compare the measurement with the expected specifications. A major weight difference can sometimes provide an important clue, although weight alone cannot prove an error. Environmental damage, wear or scale inaccuracies can affect measurements, so authentication remains important. The edge is particularly useful when evaluating a clad quarter. Look closely at the reeded edge and examine whether the copper core appears normal. A strange edge can sometimes be a clue to a manufacturing anomaly, but again, it must be professionally evaluated. That circulation history is part of the coin's story. A worn 1981 with P quarter may not be financially rare, but it is still a genuine artifact from more than 4 decades ago. It represents a small piece of everyday American economic history. The Washington quarter itself is one of the longest-running designs in American coinage. George Washington has remained a central figure on the denomination for generations. By 1981, Americans had already been using Washington quarters for almost half a century. If you happen to own one, the best thing you can do is investigate the individual coin rather than relying on a headline. Check the P mint mark. Study the date. Examine the surfaces. Look for genuine minting anomalies. Determine whether the dark appearance is toning, environmental damage, or something else. And if the coin appears unusually valuable, have it professionally evaluated. The 1981 with P Washington quarter remains an interesting part of American numismatic history. With more than 600 million pieces produced, it is common in ordinary grades, but its highest quality survivors can be significantly more desirable. That contrast between common circulation examples and scarce top-condition specimens is one of the most fascinating aspects of modern coin collecting. If you enjoyed this detailed exploration of the 1981 with P Washington quarter, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos about rare US coins, Washington quarters, Lincoln wheat pennies, Jefferson nickels, Roosevelt dimes, Kennedy half dollars, mint errors, valuable varieties, coin grading, and fascinating discoveries hidden in old collections and everyday change. And remember the golden rules of collecting. Never clean a potentially valuable coin. Never assume a dark color automatically means rarity. Never trust an extraordinary price without evidence, and always verify unusual claims through reliable numismatic sources and professional authentication. The next time you see a 1981 with P Washington quarter, take a second look. That small P mint mark connects the coin to the Philadelphia Mint and to an important chapter in the history of American circulating coinage. And while most examples are ordinary, the search for an exceptional specimen is exactly what makes coin collecting so exciting. Thanks for watching, happy collecting, and keep checking those coins. You never know when an ordinary-looking quarter might give you a reason to look twice.